What's up, guys? Just wanted to talk to you today a little bit about a former workplace of mine that does vetting for the military and the CIA and investigates people for security clearances. That place is called Clearlink. I worked there, it was a call center. We would supposedly, allegedly, sell phone and internet and, direct TV services to individuals that called in wanting those services. So they would call us and we would give them sales. I was on a team with a man named Justin Main. He was the team supervisor, and he was a part of the sales team for the sales manager of Dallin Graff. And Dallin Graff worked for a man named Jordan Belfort, a fellow team supervisor, just like my boss, Justin Main. His name was Anthony Renteria, and he worked on a different team just nearby. There was a man named Thomas Cooper. He was the HR manager. There was an operations manager, I forget his name, and there was also a sales manager, kind of like Dallin Graff, but for the AT&T side of things. I forget his name, a short Asian dude, basically. But yeah, also there was a front desk lady. Her name was Montana. And, a bunch of coworkers. There's a coworker named Chuck, a coworker named Willie, a guy named Noah, who ended up actually just being Spencer Richard wearing disguise. A fellow named Binyam from Eritrea, Shanti, Shamani, and Damien. So those are a bunch of co-workers of mine, and that just like me, sat down on their butts and made phone calls. Now these phone calls weren't all inbound sales. Apparently, something I picked up on later on down the road was some of these people would be inside the building with their headsets on across the room on Anthony's team, for example. And they would be making a phone call to me at my own desk, and they would have a voice changer, and they would create like sales call scenarios where they, question my allegiance to the country and what I thought about a foreigner becoming a citizen, and how I felt about terrorism, and how I felt about the CIA and the crack cocaine epidemic, and if I held it against the CIA, And so they would kind of do interrogations in that way. They would act like just innocent customers having innocent conversation with me. But in reality, they were actual team members across the room on the phone. And that wasn't the only way they investigated my life. In one case, in one situation, we had a workplace event where they did raffles, and it was like at some sort of bowling alley or arcade. And in that raffle, I won a laptop, and I took that laptop home with me. It was raffled off. It wasn't some sort of work laptop, but I took that laptop home with me, and I did whatever I wanted on it. I would play certain video games. I would take care of, my sexual needs even. I'd just watch whatever I needed to watch to take care of my needs. And I would go to work the next day, and my boss, Justin Main, my direct supervisor, would always be talking about the video game that I was playing, or whatever, and he would drop hints about whatever video I was watching. He's like, "Oh yeah, I know you watch that, vanilla stuff, Mo," and like he would drop things like that, and it would make me really uncomfortable. And in fact, I wasn't even sure if he was really seeing what I was looking up, and I suspected that there was some sort of spyware on the laptop, and so I went home to investigate it, and I. In the search bar, I looked up Justin Main's mom, right? And the next day at work, he was super pissed. He was yelling at me. He was like, blah, blah, blah. You shouldn't, you're bad at sales and this and that, and you guys aren't working hard enough. And he was just like red in the face and directing all his anger at me. And I kind of figured, okay, this is my job. I need a job, and this guy is spying on me, and so I need to like alleviate this situation, but also keep my job until I find another. And so, I apologized to him in signs, and I was, I was like, hey, I'm sorry that I'm not that good at making sales. I'll work on how hard I work on the computer. I was like trying to drop a hint that like somehow I was sorry, which I wasn't. I mean, the guy was spying on me. And later on, it turns out that these guys knew that I would be involved in a war game exercise, and what they were doing is getting as much information as they could on me ahead of time to cheat, basically. They were trying to maintain spyware on my devices before the quote unquote fair war game exercise even started, before the uh, the Hell Week, before they tried any of that. They were going to make sure that they had an edge, and it was a cheating edge, and but they did it anyways. And so I dealt with that kind of sexual harassment, and it wasn't just a one and done thing. It happened a few times, and I reported it to HR while I was working on finding another job. Uh, and they basically didn't really do anything about it, except the next day, Jordan Belfort, the general manager of the entire site, the Clearlink site in Scottsdale, which has since changed its name to LinkedIn. He took that entire site, and he's the man GM of that entire site. His bosses showed up, some big wigs that from Utah or something, and they took us all. They took a select few of us out to like a really expensive dinner at this place called Papa Do's, and basically they were trying to wine and dine me and hope that I forgot that any of this happened, because they weren't going to deal with Justin Maine, and they weren't going to, apologize to me directly. They didn't want to admit guilt, but they also didn't want Justin Maine to be held responsible. And so they tried to wine and dine me and make sure that I forgot that any of this ever happened. But the workplace was pretty uncomfortable, and at some point, as if to give me some sort of ultimatum, they brought an army recruiter into the workplace, which, the workplace was basically a military site. They were conducting security clearance investigations. Sure, there could have been some contractors there. Some of the guys there were also in the military, though. And so, it was really obvious. They had a hard time covering it up. I mean, some of these guys would stand at attention, put their hands behind their back and, act like dweebs and act super boot, basically. And so at one point they sat me next to an army recruiter. They moved my entire seat. Like they moved me to the other side of the room. They sat me next to an army recruiter, and basically he was like subtextually implying that I would never have a successful life, and I would always be dealing with bullshit at my work unless I joined up. And he tried giving me all sorts of convincing things. He was like, "Oh yeah, when you're in the military, they send you to Europe. You go to Germany, and me and my wife, we got on a boat and we drank this warm wine called glue, and it's all rainbows and butterflies and sunshine. And if you want a successful life, you should basically join the army." And when I declined, I was basically let go the next day. They arranged some bullshit way to fire me. This guy named Anthony Renteria was just like my boss, Justin Maine. He was just a team supervisor, but he was promoted to sales manager, a position that Dallin Graff had. And they went and promoted Anthony. And he was promoted, during our workday. And so I went to congratulate him during a really slow time. I mean, there was no phone calls going on. We have a huge board, on the TV that says, okay, this is how busy the phone calls are. We weren't getting any phone calls. And, it was like a open desk kind of environment. We weren't in cubicles. They really wanted you to socialize with the military and spy folks that they sat around you. And so it was that kind of environment. And so I went and congratulated Anthony. I was like, "Hey, congratulations. I heard you're our new boss." And, I just kept it really brief, really simple, and was going to go back to my desk. But he turned it into a confrontation. He's like, "Aren't you supposed to be taking phone calls right now? Talk to me after the work day." And so they pulled me aside eventually, and they basically, him and Justin Maine, the guy that was perving on me by spying on me through the laptop, they pulled me into a room, and they let me know that I was fired due to insubordination. And there was really no point in my time working there where I was insubordinate, right? They were just setting me up for failure, and it was really fucking annoying. And just the day before, they were trying to force me into joining the army, but I politely declined, right? I mean, they literally changed my seat to a seat across the room and sat me next to an army recruiter, and they gave me no phone calls. And so it seemed very obviously intentional. And so I eventually moved on. Some people tried to stay in my life, a fellow like Chuck, Willie Tolles, the guy that named himself Noah, but he was actually Spencer Richard wearing a disguise. Spencer went to my high school, and he actually turned out to be involved with folks like Travis, folks like Sal, other folks that basically gave me hell through my security clearance, Yankee White security clearance process. They basically gave me a really hard time about all sorts of bullshit. And so, I wasn't super fond of him. I really cared about him like beforehand. He was one of those people from back in school that I really appreciated, kind of like his sister, kind of like his sister's fiance, Khalid. It's like I really cared about these folks, and I really wanted them to stay in my life, but I had distanced myself from them for a while, only for them to resurface in my life and try to um, basically rob me and screw me over. Kind of like all the employees that I mentioned that worked at Clearlink. They all tried to screw me over in weird ways. Even the front desk lady, the secretary, she called herself Montana or something like that, and she, just a pretty girl that the first day of her interview to work as a salesperson, they basically pulled her aside. They're like, "You're pretty. We want you to be our front desk lady," and that's really all she had going for her, and was her looks. And I wasn't interested, right? Like I was polite. I would greet her when I walked in, and so did everybody else. She would date everybody that we worked with, and I never asked her out because I was never interested, right? But she took offense to that, and she was like, "You're always staring at me." And I was like, "Dude, my desk faces like in your general direction, and it's like an open desk environment. Like I'm not so fond of you that I stare at you. It's just that like I'm facing forward, right? My computer is like below my line of sight, so when I'm looking straight ahead, there's just this wide open hallway. I mean, we're talking like 300 meters, like a whole football field away is where she's sitting, and she's trying to treat me like I have it out for her, or I'm perving, or why don't I just ask her out already, And it's just like she made a whole scene about it, and I was like, look, dude, and so did a bunch of other coworkers that worked with her. There was this really bitchy lady. I forget what her name is, but she tried to turn it into this whole thing, and she would get in my way and cause a scene. I forgot her name. She's really obnoxious. I didn't really like her, but anyways, she was like African American looking and a little heavy set, um, and so yeah, it's just like it was a really stupid workplace. I mean, people would try to start shit over nothing basically, and some of it seemed like it was part of the investigation process, and some of it seemed like people were just being assholes. Like, um, there was an operation manager that worked there. I forget his name, but I never really cared to know it. But one time somebody came and dropped off mail at the front desk, and nobody was there to take it. But they literally were just dropping it off, and it said operations manager on it. So I went and dropped it off at his desk, and he was like, "You're not allowed to take mail." I was like, "Okay, I'm sorry." Like what else would you do if somebody just handed you something and walked away and had somebody else's name on it? You'd give it to that person, right? So that's what I did. And yeah, I mean, they would basically try to set up scenarios where they would say, well, since you were irresponsible with a package when it was handed to you, we're going to be irresponsible with your package when it was handed to you, right? But in no way did I ever show that I was dishonest or irresponsible with things that were passed off to me. And so there was no way for them to justify that they could rob me of my compensation as some sort of payback, right? But they would try to set up as many scenarios as they could to where they could get one on camera, right? Where they could say, well, this is payback for what you did when you were irresponsible with the package. Now we're going to be irresponsible with yours. And so they would do things like that. And another time, that same operations manager with the human resources lady that worked there, not Thomas Cooper, the other one, there's a lady that worked there in HR as well. And they came up to me and were like dissing me for not being religious, and they were like, "What are you, a heathen?" And I don't know. It was just a really stupid workplace. It was part of the investigation process, and I really disliked it, but it's what I needed to do to get by, right? It was a nice full-time job, a 9 to 5 gig kind of a thing. Uh, I thought maybe I could make some friends there. Like, before I knew Noah was just a kid from high school wearing a disguise. I made friends with him. I went to his place one time, and him and his buddies were just sitting there rapping. And I don't rap, and I don't really have much input, so I kind of just left. And he was frustrated with the fact that I just didn't hang around. And I guess just another case of guys trying to document the fact that they're my friend. So when the money was finally coming my way, they could try to screw me over, right? Same thing goes for Binyam. Same thing goes to Hung. And these people will try to penetrate your life and try to be friends with all your friend circles. Like this really cringy chick named Layla. We sat next to each other, so I would say good morning to her every day. And she tried to be like super good friends with me, but I kind of kept my distance and just kept it professional. When she couldn't be friends with me, she would try to be super good friends with my coworkers. But apparently they didn't want her in on their little robbery scheme, their little startup, and they were trying to like kick her out, even though she was trying to wedge herself in. So like, Mo, don't hang out with her. We used to be drinking friends, but we don't like her. And then like at work, super awkward because she'd be like, "Oh yeah, I love your roommates. They're such good friends of mine." It's just like this really awkward kind of shit talking back and forth thing where I was like, at one point I was like, "Stop involving yourself with my roommates. Like I don't want you in my life. Like I keep our friendship professional. I keep it at work." And like I had to tell her that twice. I was like, "Hey, stop talking to my roommates about me. Stop involving yourself with my roommates. They don't really like you, by the way." Like I said that in such a professional, like, "Hey, just a heads up, like you're being really fucking weird." And she didn't take the hint, dude. She really didn't take the hint. And at one point, I had to move away from those roommates, right? Because I was living with Jacqueline Braden, Joshua Rodriguez, Cody Myers, Garrett Myers, Antonino Galindo, Nicole Giampiano, Garrett Myers, Cody Myers, right? And I was living with all those folks. And at one point, they were doing a lot of gaslighting, and they were doing a lot of messing with things in my room, and touching my guns, and like basically bullying me and treating me like shit. And I was like, "Fuck this! I'm moving out." And so I moved away from them, and I was still working at Clearlink at the time. And Layla was like trying to get the scoop on the drama, and she was like trying to talk to me about it at work. And I repeatedly told her, like, "Stop! It's none of your business. Leave me alone." And eventually, I dragged her over to the boss, Justin, and I was like, "Hey, this bitch is like keeps talking to me about my personal life, and I don't want her to. And like, we don't even need to talk to each other to do our jobs, right? Like, I would just say good morning to her, share candy, whatever. It's things you do with somebody that you sit right next to at work. Just kept it really simple." But yeah, so all these people would try to like penetrate into your life. This kid named Hung would be really good friends with Saif Ulhaq later on down the road. Special needs kid that would try to claim that I was a special needs person. He was looking after me when he has fetal alcohol syndrome, and I would basically wipe his butt, change his diapers, cook him food, clean the house, right? And so Hung tried to penetrate that friendship circle. And it wasn't like a situation of, oh, it's just a small world. Like, this shit was not a coincidence. It was one person from Clearlink every time that would try to involve himself in my life, right? I would get moved across the room just to happen to be sitting next to a military recruiter that only worked there for a couple of days, right? And so, yeah, dude, that shit got really stupid. That shit got really weird. And eventually I stopped working at Clearlink. But to this day, I hold it against them that they basically were spying on me and my sex life through my laptop, and they tried to cover it up as best as they could. It just really wasn't cool, and it's a pattern. It's something that happened to me at all my other workplaces. It happened to me at MaxQ Technologies. Memo Romero and Omar Ramirez would take notice of the uses of a laptop that they gave me as a gift, right? They would take notice of how I used it, and they would talk about it at work, and it involved some, perverted things that they shouldn't have been, discussing, and it's just like something that happened over and over and over. And I first thought that this was like a Saif Ulhaq thing, and he was the only person responsible for it. But the truth is, he tried taking responsibility for it. That doesn't mean that he was the only person, because he takes it as a badge of pride that he was spying on me and he did such a good job. When in reality, he's not going to get a penny from me, and he's a complete fuck up. And there's no reason why he should be deserving of my security clearance compensation for damages that he and his friends caused me. Like, there's no justification as to why I should give him my compensation. Why? Because he tortured me and he did a good job. Like, he wants to be rewarded for that. He can go fuck himself. But yeah, so I thought he was the only person responsible for the spyware on the laptops thing, because he took responsibility for it. But he's just trying to build up clout and stop being mentioned as like just the retarded person in my documentation, in my video series of his involvement and everybody else's involvement. It turns out that those guys at Clearlink were really good with computers. They would build their own crypto mining rigs, uh, et cetera, et cetera. They would brag about what kind of computers they were building, and how they were mining Ethereum and mining Bitcoin and this and that. And so it turns out that they very much, put together a simple laptop, pretended it was brand new, raffled it off to me at a workplace gig, just to spy on me and be perverts and try to get as much information as they could to use against me. They even tried to form friendships with me, and it was just really weird. Another way they tried to penetrate into my other friend circles was this guy named Minaj Kumar briefly stopped by there and worked there, and he tried being friends with one of my other friend circles, which involved other people from high school. We're talking like Swan Pang and Jordana Woodward. We were a small clique for a little bit, but it didn't last long. Long story, but not every circle sticks together forever, and I kind of moved on from that, and so this is like a very key workplace in my story, because all of these people treated me wrong. All of these people tried spying on me, forcing themselves into my life, and when I didn't allow it, I got punished. Right? When I pointed out that they were putting spyware on a laptop that they gifted to me, I was punished. And they tried covering it up, and they tried to wine and dine me despite the punishment, despite the retaliation. When I refused to join the army, when they sat me down next to an army recruiter, I was punished. In fact, I was fired the next day, right? And so it's all just a bunch of bullshit, and I think it's really clear that these folks have an attempt at a monopoly at what they call a war game exercise. Like there's no opportunity for me to put together a team to where I can put up a defense against their efforts. They just like to play spy and act like they're super good at what they do when they botch the job in so many different ways, and it's a rigged fight. Like it's not even a fair fight. It's rigged. They spend literally tons of money, billions of dollars, trying to rob somebody that's due for just a little bit more money than that, or hundreds of millions of dollars to screw somebody over that's their security clearance compensation. It's due to be just a little bit more than that, and they have an entire business network in Scottsdale, and they work with the Angels Stadium, and it's just like this whole thing where these wealthy people that work in intelligence set up a Ponzi scheme to fuck you over. And there are lots of key figures at the head of this. Nobody can claim to be the mastermind of how all this money was put together. And even if they did claim to be some sort of mastermind of it, they all shit the bed in unique and different ways, whether it be my roommates, whether it be my coworkers, whether it be special person that went to the same mosque as me. It's all it all ties in together, and I'm not some crazy person pointing at a cork board with red string drawn between a bunch of photographs. The connections are clear, the connections are direct. The fact that they are military wearing civilian clothes is very obvious. Some of these folks would end up breaking into my house. The ones that I didn't accidentally invite over in a friendly manner, and some of the ones that I did invite over, I would catch them like leaving my house in a hurry and my door open, kind of a thing. I would have things moved around in my place, and so it's not like it was some sort of clean investigation. It was really dirty, and these people were more hell-bent on robbing me and setting me up for failure and retaliating against me or being shitty to me, much more than they were actually, investigating. And so that's the little scoop, some of the details anyways, about Clearlink. My old workplace that I worked at for a little more than a year, I think it was what it was, and in that short time they just caused my life all sorts of hell and tried to involve themselves in my life in all sorts of ways and act super condescending to me. In fact, a couple of years later, when I moved up to Flagstaff, right about now, but also last summer as well, they stalked me up here. I would see Dallin Graff, I would see Justin Main up here, and I would see Anthony Renteria, and I wish I could look at them and just like give them a friendly smile and act like we're cool, but it wasn't all friendly, and these folks would be working in different places or just, you know, just straight up stalking me. Like Anthony the other day, I saw him working at a uh, van recreation rental place, um, where they would, give you a camping van that they, turn the inside of it into an RV type of thing, and one of those rental slash sales places. And I also saw those folks doing the same thing down in Tempe, Arizona. They had another outdoor van rental slash sales place. Um, and so they have little hubs. I mean, these people are very wealthy, and they use that wealth to screw over other people. I mean, I could delve into all the other perversion and all the other ways that these people are shitty, but I feel like that kind of says enough, right? I mean, when people are able to leverage their finances and all of their business ventures and all of their homes and cabins to fuck you over, um, I think you kind of have the right to just call them shitty people, right? I mean, are these really the kind of people you want working in government investigating you? People that are just after money? I mean, just after some bounty that they create by causing you damages? I don't think so. I think there's opportunity for people with cleaner hearts and more less shallow intentions to be involved in our first line of defense in national security or our military. People that don't cover up sexual assaults and sexual harassments and involve themselves in a pattern of harassment that other other workplaces that I've worked at might involve themselves in. And so yeah, this is just one of many places that I thought would be an innocent workplace, a nice full-time job. I was constantly winning awards for being the best salesperson there. It's not like I was falling short in any way for them to justify retaliating or treating me bad, as if there is an excuse to do that to a human being. So I just didn't get it at the time, but later on when I found out that I was up for a security clearance and there was going to be compensation and people were going to be able to do a little purge, and do whatever they want to try to rob you and screw you over and treat you like shit, I figured that, oh, okay, these people were, basically putting some tar on their pitching hand and trying to rob me way earlier on so they could screw me over way easier later on, right? They tried to rob me earlier on so they could screw me over more easily later on. And impacting a person's finances, impacting a person's character and workplace reputation, assassinating those parts of a person's life does in fact make it much easier for you to try to put them under a conservatorship later on down the road. When I first called my brother about my not being able to work at that place anymore, he's like, oh yeah, well what happened at your last job? Oh yeah, well what happened at your last job? And it's like, yeah, dude, the same thing happened. They gave me a laptop, and for some reason, I trusted it, and I was really happy with the gift. And it turns out they were just spying on me through it and being perverts. And I was winning salesman of the month, and I got the most sales in home security systems, and the most sales in TV systems, and packages. And it's like, my brother was like, well, this is a pattern of you getting screwed over. It's like, actually, it's a pattern of. He's like, it's a pattern of you screwing up and not being able to keep a job. And it's like, actually, bro, this is a pattern of me getting screwed over. I mean, look at the facts of each of these situations. I work at this call center, and it smells like hobos, and they hire just about anybody. And most of the people leave during the lunch break when they get hired on because they realize how shit of a workplace it is. And I took the job and worked at this call center in Tempe. I worked that job anyways because I wanted to make money. I wanted to get by. It's not like I just went straight for, getting unemployment from the state. I worked at Clearlink, and these people were spying on me through a gift that they gave me, and they treated me like shit when I tried, putting my best foot forward, even inviting a couple of them to my home to be like, look, a person just like you. Why do you treat me like shit at work? Let's be friends. And that didn't work. And I worked at Max Q Technologies, a machine shop. I interned there as a machine. I got a little internship as a machinist at Max Q Technologies and at Eckert Enterprises, and those folks would also spy on me in all sorts of ways and treat me like shit. At Eckert Enterprises, every other place in that industrial neighborhood is able to park on the street, but at Eckert Enterprises, Frank Eckert, aka Scott Eckert, has signs on the road that say don't park in front of this business. So we have to park in this back room parking lot, and my office where I do quality assurance on machined parts is on the other side of the building. Pretty big warehouse. And I would find my car tampered with out. My coworker Martin would have troubles with me at work, and the next day I would go for a drive and my steering is all shaky, and he would drop a hint to me. He's like, "Oh, your steering shaky? I wonder what happened." We're capable of all sorts of things around here. And it's like they were like threatening my life just because some guy wasn't getting along with me at work or something, and I wasn't walking in step with the way he wanted me to. And it's just like all of these places were looking for excuses to spy on me and treat me like shit. They were looking for excuses to somehow label me as special needs, right? They would always inquire about ADHD. They would always inquire about autism. It's like, dude, I have my own place. I have my own car. I bought my own places. I bought my own car. I live my best life. I don't need any of this condescending shit where you pretend that I'm special just because my brother and my mother want to put me under some sort of conservatorship so they could also try to rob me of my security clearance compensation. Like, these people aren't trustworthy. Spencer, who's friends with Alex Hurtado, who had trouble living with because of some nefarious things that he tried doing in my bedroom. I was like, hey, like, I'm sorry, but I don't trust you. Even if you work at Clearlink, I don't care. There's a reason I had to move away from living with Alex. And you guys can't hang that over my head. I have to protect myself and live my best life. If somebody's trying to use me and I say no, that's that. And it's like, I don't like bringing these kinds of things up about people that I grew up caring a lot about, and I've spent Thanksgivings with before. It's like I want to, even if I didn't win some money, I want to reappear in their lives and be somebody that can support their dreams. But it seems like they're more hell-bent on protecting their image and pretending that we're still buddy-buddy and that they haven't screwed me over, whether it be Travis, whether it be Annie, Spencer's friend, Annie Watts, or her father, a commander down at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to invite any of you guys to screw me over. That's just, I can't have you guys in my life because of things that have happened in the past or things that are currently happening, right? And I'm not going to clear your name so you can somehow justify pretending you're on my team. Sometimes friendship statuses change, and you just have to roll with the punches. And it seems like they're unwilling to, because the moment I label them as no longer my friends and no longer welcome in my personal life, they have less leverage over me to try to testify against me or ability to be involved in my life to where they're more easily able to rob me. And so, yeah, I guess that kind of shows you a little bit about this workplace called Clearlink and how these people tried to forcibly involve themselves in my life. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it.